The Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan, and DigitalOcean. Go over to DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code LASTDigital, and then you can spin up your own Linux rig for free. Welcome to the Linux Action Show, episode 358. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey, Noah. Good morning to you. And guess
Hey,
what,
Chris.
Noah? It's a big show today. I happen to know it because I just looked at the doc. I'll tell you more about that later. Now, actually, coming up on this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, Noah's going to round up some of the best remote desktop solutions from and to the Linux desktop. So not just managing Linux desktops, but also remote managing Windows machines from the Linux desktop. And I have a very special need for that, and I'll tell you more about that in the future. But let's just say, very soon, this is going to be a big requirement in my life, so I'm glad we're going through this right now. Also, in the news segment, the LibreOffice camp has something very exciting to announce. Is SteamOS converging a little too far from Debian? Gnome 3.16's got some great features we'll tell you about, and a little bit of Ubuntu phone news, plus some epic feedback. And of course, Noah, surprise, surprise, our picks. We're going to start there. So let's start with our Runs Linux pick this week. It came in from viewer Zach. His work runs Linux, and we've been asking the audience to send in their Runs Linux, and so he did just that. He's been watching JB content for years, and he took a video after Noah's request, very kindly, to show us this. Now, just a warning to you audience members, if you're not familiar with what a data center sounds like, brace yourselves. For those of you who work in a data center, you will recognize the welcoming tones of all of those sweet humming server fans.
Hey guys, Zachary Hunsaker here, Rats08 is my handle for the IRC. Don't go there very often, but I'd like to a little bit more. As you see, I'm wearing my Linux Action Show t-shirt, very excited about this Runs Linux for you guys. And this is the NCAR Wyoming Supercomputing Center.
So this is a supercomputing center, okay?
Here we run Linux. So you can see we have some IBM servers.
Wow.
This is the Yellowstone supercomputer.
Wow!
It's still one of the top 50 fastest supercomputers in the world right now. I'll go ahead and open up one of these racks for you guys. As you can see, we have a ton of nodes packed inside this place. There's well over 6,000 compute nodes in total.
Wow!
And a few management nodes that kind of help divvy out tasks and processing power to and tasks so these compute nodes can work on all that processing power that we have here. You can find a whole lot of specs online about just how fast it is here. We're in the petaflops calculations, and it's pretty amazing here. This is only one of the things that runs Linux here. I'll go ahead and when I get back to my workstation, I'll log in and show you guys some of the cool things on Yellowstone. I'll run some commands on this supercomputer. I'll show you the Linux kernel that we're running and the version of Linux that we're running on this machine. But just thought you guys would like to see a couple more things besides the freaking amazing supercomputer we have.
Wow.
Just so you can see. Cable management is amazing on these things. We had IBM come in here and they did all of that.
Gold standard there.
A couple years ago. What I really want to show you guys is we have a couple servers over here. This one's called Geyser. And what's really cool about this thing is if we come in the back here.
He's going into a room with glass doors where it's a room inside the server room. This is kind of neat.
I'm going to close this door so we can keep these things cooled down. You come in the back here. Probably can't see very well, but we have KVMs coming to the back of these machines. This is basically our remote workstations. We have people all over the company, scientists, that if they want a GUI, they can log onto this. Has a really, really high-end GPUs, a lot of them.
Wow. Wow.
And the cool thing is I just watched a seminar some of the guys gave. Here, I'll come show you the front of this, too. They gave a seminar, and they were running Gnome before on these machines. They switched to Mate because Gnome was using too much CPU power for some of the scientists, and I mean, they're doing a lot of their work over the network. So, big shout out to the Mate project. I'm really liking what they're doing. I'm still a Gnome user. But like I said, I'll go log in now to my computer and run a couple commands for you guys, show you my workstation runs Linux as well. So hope this is cool, and see you guys later. Thanks.
The chat room says that he runs Linux, and I completely agree. I'll have to get that posted after the show, so we can embed that in the show notes for those of you on the audio, because it is a real treat to see that. That was really cool. So is there any details in his email that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, so we can actually go through it just as if it was feedback. He writes in and says, first off, I've been listening to all JB content for years now, and you guys never disappoint. A lot of things have been happening in my life lately. Most exciting things is I've recently offered a new job as a system administrator.
Cool.
This is where the Run Linux comes from. First off, let me start by saying thank you. A couple of months ago, I was listening to one of your shows and Linux Academy came up, so I decided to give it a shot. I've been using Linux since I was 14, but I've never been under the impression that I knew everything there is to know about Linux. I learned so much from Linux Academy in just a very short period of time. I'll soon be getting the Linux Plus certification. Well, a couple of weeks ago, a position came up at NWSC, the NCAR Wyoming Supercomputing Center near where I live. I jokingly threw my resume in the fray, and after 2 very technical interviews, they offered me the job.
Great.
I attribute this to the good discussions I listened to on the Jupiter Broadcasting Network, Linux Academy, and a lot of personal effort.
Hey-o.
I've only been officially working in IT for a year since my formal education is in Spanish. Tell everyone that Linux is in very high demand skill right now. After they offered me the position, they said they had plenty of Windows system admins with 15 plus years of experience apply for the job, but that Linux was such a crucial skill, they decided to give me the position. Keep up the great shows, Rats08. And so that is, I mean, this is a true success story for a number of different things. First of all, it's a success story for Linux Academy because they gave him the tools he needed to get the formal education he needed to get the job. It's a success story for Jupiter Broadcasting. If you're a listener of the show, or if you know anyone that can get involved with listening to the shows, that's how you participate in the discussion. And you can bet that those interviews that he had where they asked him technical questions, some of that stuff had been covered on the show, and somebody had asked a question and somebody else had responded to the question, and things like the System D debate and things like the Mir versus Wayland debate and stuff like that is all stuff that you have time to critically think about that stuff, in an open, relaxed environment before you get down to your job literally depends on being able to answer these questions.
That's a good point.
With a good
I
answer.
hadn't thought about that.
So that's a success story. And then, of course, what we keep coming back to, we go to these conferences, we go and we talk to people that are hiring people right now in the IT field, and what they're looking for is Linux skills. It's not Windows skills.
Right.
It's Linux, and it's becoming more and more.
And I was beginning to wonder, when he said that, these Windows admin who have 15 years, I wonder
15 years.
I wonder if part of it is Windows admins, because they're getting that far into their career, if they're maybe becoming too costly. And so there's also now becoming incentive from a cost point for Linux and this isn't always great because there's also graybeard Linux admins and Unix admins, obviously. But there is a new fresh batch of Linux admins coming in that they could pay a slightly lower rate than they would maybe a Windows admin who's sitting on 15 years of experience.
Personal opinion, I think it probably has more to do with the mentality of Windows admins than the mentality of Linux admins.
How so?
If you look at the majority of Linux users and the majority of this audience, they are you rarely find people that say that can't be done or I don't know how to do it. Or I wasn't my pet peeve drives me nuts. I wasn't certified for that version. I didn't go through the training for that version.
And that's actually a thing.
And you don't get that from Linux people. You get that.
We can build that. Yeah, we can build that.
Microsoft-centric thing.
We can build that.
Right, exactly. I don't know if that solution works, but let me go find 4 pieces of software that we can string together to make to create a solution. Not I Googled it and no such software exists.
Let me tell you about the pipe. I could just pipe it to this and
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very real thing. And if I had to guess, if I was an employer and I was looking to hire people, that would be a major setback from the Windows folks, is that they have this mentality of if it doesn't have an exe that I can download and double click on, then it's not going to work.
Right. Wow, that was Zach. Thank you so much for saying that. And if you get a chance to record the video of you at your workstation and showing us all that stuff, we'll make it another Runs Linux Part 2. That would be a real treat for us, and we'd really love to see that.
Yeah.
I'll put that video in the show notes. I have it uploading to YouTube right now, so that way folks can watch that, because that's a real treat. And to see, to see, we talk about it, but to see an audience member there is pretty cool. All right, well, we have got a bunch of great desktop app picks and spotlights and all kinds of things to get through, and a little Linux Fest Northwest update. It's a really big show today. So first, let's thank our first sponsor, DigitalOcean. Head over to DigitalOcean.com to support this show and, my good friends, to get yourself a kick-butt server up in the cloud. What is DigitalOcean? It is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to making you get going on your own Linux rig as fast as possible. They're really the most intuitive and easy way to start up your own cloud server. You can get started in less than 55 seconds. And pricing plans start at only $5 a month. That'll get you 512 megabytes of RAM, 20 gigabyte SSD. They do all SSDs throughout. This is one of the things they're really sharp about. 1 CPU and a terabyte of transfer. A terabyte of transfer is actually extremely significant. In fact, I've mentioned before, if you're starting out on a podcast or something like that and you want to really have fast downloads, and as people download now on mobile more and more, delivering that content as fast as possible is really great. And the reason I say that is if you're like, for example, you want to download the latest episode of the Linux Action Show, and you're on Wi-Fi for a few minutes while you're in your garage or about to go out the door, and you're trying to download that podcast. If you deliver that podcast as fast as possible, they'll get it on their phone before they get out the door, and so they can listen to it on their drive. It's one of those little things you can do as a podcaster to make sure your podcast is one of the ones that gets on the device. If you're starting out now, or if you've even got a fairly large audience, you should seriously check out DigitalOcean for your back end. And if you use our promo code LASTDigital, you get a $10 credit. You can try that out 2 months, absolutely free. Last Digital, you just apply it to your account over DigitalOcean and you're good to go. Let me tell you though, DigitalOcean also could give you a little bit of geodiversity, because you'll probably find that a good percentage of your audience, whoever it is, if you're a podcaster or you have a website or it's an own cloud site, if you make it public, you'll find a good percentage of your audience is going to come from outside the US. So why not have a little geodiversity? They have data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London, and they're gorgeous. But really, it's DigitalOcean's interface that I love. It's intuitive. And you can replicate the functionality of this interface on a larger scale with their API. And there's a lot of really good apps built around that. It's a really great service. And I think when you look at the way you can manage your system, manage your DNS, take snapshots of your servers, back them up before you make any major changes, so that way, you can take the risks to learn, and if you make a mistake, you just go right back. Or one of the things I do to save time is I restore from a snapshot, and I just build a new machine based on that. It saves me a bunch of time, and then I just do the updates, and the updates are crazy fast. And they have one-click application deployments for things like GitLab and all of that stuff, like WordPress, Ghost. It's just, they have a whole section you can check out. Also, look at their community area. They have lots of really great tutorials. I look at this and I think, if this was around when I was early on in my IT contracting career, I would have incorporated this constantly into my work. I could build infrastructure. I could honestly, I could charge them $10 a month and make a $5 profit, right? And it's still, they would think it's the most amazing deal they've ever had. My clients would have. If you're building an application, or if you have an open source project and you want to have it hosted somewhere, check them out. DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code LASTDigital. Get that $10 credit. And a really big thanks to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. You guys rock. Okay, so we're going to do some themes app picks this week. And the first one, I hope I'm saying it right, is Romania. You might even have it already installed with your desktop, but it is a remote desktop client. It's a GTK Plus app. It's supposed to be useful for system admins, travelers, or folks like Noah who are doing remote support and need something that does RDP, VNC, NX, even X remote windows, and SSH, tunneling through SSH, and all of that in one application. And that's sort of where Romania comes in, right, Noah?
So I'll tell you one of the coolest instances that we did of Romania in a second. But first, I'll start out just kind of how it works. So it essentially acts as any other like the Windows remote desktop utility does.
It's like when the RDP client was still good.
Right. So if you're not familiar with the RDP protocol, RDP is interesting in that it draws the screen locally rather than on the remote side, so you get a faster response time. You feel like you're sitting closer to the machine.
It's actually one of the neatest tricks of Windows, really, because the way the Windows desktop, the GDI system is drawn, it just uses RDP to draw them remotely. And so instead of sending screen grabs, you're actually sending it's almost like doing vector graphics in a way. You're sending the vector and then the RDP window. I mean, that's a horrible analogy, but you get it.
Yeah. So I can do SFTP. I can do SSH. Of course, you can do VNC and do an incoming VNC. But for the demo, I'll just show you RDP. And there's a reason I want to, even though nobody likes Windows, there's a reason I want to talk about why this is so useful from a Linux standpoint. So I have the credential saved, and it essentially logs in. And here you can see this is a...
That's a Windows XP machine you just remoted into.
It's an XP box. And so if I hit the full screen, it takes over as if I was actually sitting at a Windows XP box. Now, the neat thing here is that I feel like I'm actually sitting. I don't know what the delay is like coming through Jitsi, but it feels, it feels pretty responsive. That's enough looking at Windows. Let me tell you how this relates to Linux. I had a client that had Windows specific software that they were using. And the application ran on Windows, the server ran on Windows. So the first thing we did was we ripped the server out and put a Linux server in, and then put a Windows guest to run their Windows software on.
Sure.
Now the problem was I still had these front desk computers that were running Windows, and it was such a pain because they were the front desk were still crashing because they were still running Windows, and it was a real pain. So what we did was we created another virtual guest of Windows and called it Windows Client, and then we used Romania on two Linux workstations at the front desk to then RDP into the Windows Client VM.
Yeah.
And then they access their software. So the great thing was, anytime they mucked up that workstation, I simply deleted the drive image inside of Virt Manager. I copied the fresh drive image over, and now it was like I restored their workstation. And I didn't actually touch anything on their client, on the machine that's sitting at the front desk. So I would tell them, close out the connection, give me 30 seconds, and I could restore a computer in like 35 seconds. And the great thing is, they are, whether they know it or not, getting experience on Linux, because guess where they were going to browse the internet and check their email and all that stuff. That was all happening native Linux. The only thing was that one application was being done in Windows.
Right.
And then further coolness, I was talking with some of the guys that make the Scepter, which is a thin client HDMI dongle. So you plug it in and then it becomes a thin client. And he was showing me some ways that you can actually send a Windows application through terminal services to show up as if it was a native Linux application running over the network. And so now we're playing with trying to incorporate something like that. But this is the important thing to understand is you cannot, many times it is very difficult to switch somebody from Windows to Linux whole hog. But tools like this, if you are a Windows administrator, the first thing your boss is going to tell you is you can't install Linux because we need you to be able to get into all these servers and control them and this, that, and the other. And you can say, no, listen, I will provide my own RDP client, and then I'll be able to get into all these computers. Another place that worked out really well, we had a client that was using QuickBooks, and they absolutely insisted on using QuickBooks. I couldn't get them to give up QuickBooks. QuickBooks is not going to run in one.
Yeah,
but
I've been there.
We could do is we used a hosted service called Right Choice Networks or Right Networks, and what they do is they have hosted QuickBooks instances that they give you a little file, a little exe that runs, but really it's an RDP connection. So we installed Romania again, and we were able to get them access to their QuickBooks. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because now all of their information is being backed up. It's clouded. It's all in the cloud. It's all cloudified. But they're accessing everything with a Linux desktop. And if you can do that, if you can break things up and change things in little steps, little bits at a time without just pulling the rug out from somebody, and so they don't have a bad experience on Linux because they still have access to those applications that they
makes
used
it
to.
much easier.
You have a much higher chance at the end of getting them to fully switch.
That's
to
like
Linux.
greasing the slide. No, it's greasing the slide.
And you know what? And going back to the first client I was talking about, where we have the virtual server and the virtual client.
Yeah.
You ask any one of those employees, they won't be able to tell you the technical nature of how it works. But here's what they'll say.
Right.
The computer works great.
Yeah.
That dumb little icon that I have to click on once I get into that other little desktop, that thing's slow as heck. Nothing ever works right. Like it works great for a couple weeks, but then we have to call him, and then he has to.
And that would be the Windows desktop.
Right, that's a Windows desktop.
Yeah.
So they don't even understand. They don't necessarily understand that they hate Windows and they're enjoying Linux. They just know that this part of the computer works well and that part of the computer doesn't work well. So if it ever came time where that software was available on Linux or an alternative was available on Linux, and I went in there and said, listen, we could get rid of that little icon with that little mini workstation, they would be all over it. They would whole head.
Let me tell you a couple other favorite features of Romania's sort of like just stuff from somebody who's used a lot of remote desktop features over the years. One thing I like is you can predefine allowable resolutions, and it won't even attempt different resolutions. That's something for me. I get really picky about my layout, and I like to have a minimum resolution maximum. A couple other things that I think are kind of neat is it has a plugin system, so you can add different stuff like telephony, the desktop sharing stuff, which is pretty cool. And then last but not least, regardless of what remote desktop protocol you want, NX, RDP, SFTP, Secure Shell, or X Remote Session, And this, I think, is really a nice feature. So let's say I had a Windows box that I wanted to connect to, but it was behind a firewall. You can have Romania make sure that it first creates an SSH tunnel. Regardless, even though you're doing a Windows RDP connection, it will first establish an SSH tunnel and pipe the RDP session through that. Or, perhaps more realistically, a remote X session. So you could establish an SSH connection to your Linux box, and then it will do the X11 tunneling through that and get you to your desktop. That's a pretty nice feature. Regardless of, there's other ones that have that capability, but the UI here is really straightforward. Being able to preset your resolutions and all that kind of stuff sort of brings that all together. And then integration with things like Gnome telephony so you can do desktop sharing are all pretty nice features. So check it out. Romania, it's pretty nice. Good pick, Noah. I like that one. So you use that for quite a while, I bet.
I have, yeah, and in fact, I'm using it less and less, obviously, because I'm watching as there are less and less Windows machines that I have to get access to. But it is when you need it, it is one of the best RDP clients for Linux, I think.
Yeah, and there's so many different cool, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch coming up in the show. We're going to talk about just general remote desktop solutions for Linux, like a whole bunch of different stuff you can use. This is just the beginning. This is one of many things, and this is one of the clients you can use to access some of the solutions we're going to be talking about later in the show. So if your appetite has been whetted by that is just the tip of the iceberg. But I have some really great news before we move on. Teespring.com/Linux has tipped. It's broken. Boom. We hit the mark. We have sold 278 shirts with 1 day, 8 hours left. That's really great. And we're sitting in a pretty good position, I believe, at this point. Almost every single person in the crew is locked in. Right, Noah? Like, I think Rotten Corpse doesn't have his ticket spot yet, but outside of that, like, we have Chris Moore is in, Alan Jude is in, you're in, Q5sys is in, Rotten Corpse is in. They're all going to be traveling in. They'll be coming in. And, of course, everybody local here will be going up there. Chase will be going. I'll be going. Angela will be going. So it's going to be a huge party. We're going to have almost all the crew. I'm even going to see if I can somehow talk Rikai into at least going to the Friday night dinner. Right? At least the Friday night dinner.
Good luck.
I know.
Is the Friday night dinner, I have a question for you. Is the Friday night dinner, is it going to be held at Five Guys? Because if not, there's no chance.
Let's just tell him
Zero.
it is. I mean, here's what we do. We just don't feed him all day, and we tell him we're going to Five Guys. And then when we get wherever we're going, he'll have to eat.
Here's what he'll say. And it won't matter if it's actually true. He'll go, I could just walk there. I can walk to Five Guys, and I would just.
You know what we'll do? Here's what we'll do.
If he doesn't like, I'll.
Here's the thing. If he doesn't like the restaurant we go to, we'll stop by Five Guys on the way back to the studio and get him food. Huh? Everybody wins. So very excited, and you still have a chance. 1 day, 8 hours left over at teespring.com/Linux to grab yourself a Linux Fest Northwest shirt or hoodie or ladies tee or kids t-shirt, and not only support our initiative, but if you're going to make it to the fest, be part of the club who's rocking the gear. And to be honest with you, it helps with social situations because you see somebody else who's wearing the same shirt, and it reduces barriers. It's immediately a conversation starter. Hey, you watched the Linux Action Show. How long you been watching, or what episodes, or blah blah blah. So it sort of eliminates these weird, awkward social situations because you're going to a Linux fest and everybody there is a Linux user. You probably all have common interests, but sometimes it's hard to just walk up to somebody and talk. But when you're both wearing like a Linux Action Show shirt or a Jupiter Broadcasting swag, it helps quite a bit. And they'll probably be able to tell you where all the fun's at too. So teespring.com/Linux, and we'll have it. You can also wear it to future events as well that we go to. All right. So this week, Noah, we had no doubt in our minds. Both of us knew what the spotlight was going to be for an open source project this week. Yeah. There is a distribution after watching last week's episode where we talked about the Kodi Media Center. There is a distribution you might want to check out called OpenELEC. Am I saying that? Or OpenELEC? Am I saying that right? OpenELEC?
It's OpenELEC.
OpenELEC. It's the Open Embedded Linux Entertainment Center. It's a small Linux distribution built from scratch as a platform to turn your computer into the ultimate Kodi experience. It's designed to make your system boot fast and install is so easy. And guess what? It helps connect you to wireless and things like that. What do you think, Noah? What are your thoughts?
So I'm going to pick my words very carefully.
Sure.
No. So if you head over to the Kodi project website, and you look, and we're going to cover this in more details in the feedback, because as it turns out, the developers agreed with me. But if you go over to the Kodi website and you look under downloads, you get an option for Apple, iOS, you get an option for Android, you get an option for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and then you get Kodi Ubuntu, which is what
So here's
I
how it works.
perceived-
So here it is right
so
here.
Here's Windows, there's
And-
Linux,
and
there's
Linux-
Apple, there's Android, there's Raspberry Pi,
And then there's
iOS.
Kodi
The only one in that download link
Yeah.
that looks like it is a ready pre-built solution is Kodi Ubuntu. And as it turns out, the developers acknowledge that Kodi Ubuntu is actually a horrible implementation.
It's a hot mess.
Of really, and so OpenElect, basically everything that I had a problem with last week is totally solved by using OpenElect instead of Kodi Ubuntu.
Yeah.
And what is dumber yet on my part is the entire time during the show, the chat room was saying you should use OpenElect. You should try OpenElect. You got to try OpenElect.
So this is something that's difficult when you do reviews. It's difficult
Mm-hmm.
because you have to review it in some regard. So there's two ways you can go. You can go, how would the expert user review this? And sometimes we do that, and we'll just disclaim this is how we're doing this one. And sometimes you have to go, how would somebody walking into this for the first time do this? And that was our approach with Kodi, because it seems like maybe building your own media entertainment system, there's a potential there. That could be your first introduction to using Linux, a pretty big potential. That's a new avenue into Linux. And if you're going to do that, you're probably going to go to the Kodi website and download Kodi Ubuntu. So I think it's not too hard to defend taking that position from a review standpoint. What I think you could also say there's room for is a separate review of OpenElect. Like that could happen in its own.
What was unfair and what I didn't think about originally, and in hindsight, this was completely unfair of me, is to review Kodi Ubuntu, to do a review or to review Kodi. What I should have done is simply installed Kodi on my desktop and played with Kodi, because Kodi is an application, and that is how I would have best reviewed Kodi. The problem with doing that is I have absolutely no use case for that. I never sit down. At no point do I ever sit down to my computer and want to run a media center. I would just open the file in VLC.
Yeah, that's how we both
The only purpose of Kodi for me is if I can run it as an appliance. But Kodi itself isn't an appliance, and the only thing I could find that was close to an appliance was Kodi Ubuntu. Really, the correct choice would have been OpenElect. So I guess my complaints last week really were, and I think I even acknowledged this, were a limitation of my own intelligence, not necessarily a limitation of Kodi. And so once you pair Kodi once you use Kodi the proper way, so if you want to use it as an appliance, use it with a distribution that's actually correctly paired for an appliance, works just fine.
Like OpenElect.
It works just great.
Yeah.
And they had wireless. I put it on a Raspberry Pi 1, the first generation, the 512 megabyte, junk Pi, and I was able to stream a 1080p video, no problem.
Yeah.
I take that back. It glitched a little bit when it started playing, but then once it started, it was great.
Yeah.
And so imagine what the Raspberry Pi 2 would do.
Yeah, because they have specific optimizations in there for the hardware components in the Pi that do the video decoding. The thing is I've heard of this before, and the reason why we both went that route is we both wanted the appliance approach. So I think we'll do a separate review of this in the future. Yeah. I'm excited about that. But you guys can go check it out right now. And if you watched our episode last week and wanted a really great turnkey solution for Kodi, previously known as XBMC, go check this out. They say a distribution from scratch. Did you dig into that at all? Where what it's based on or anything? That may be something we look into further.
But it worked. Here's the thing. Here's why this is the hallmark of a good project. When I can go to OpenElect and I download the image, I put it onto in my case, a Raspberry Pi, and plugged it into my TV, and it worked so perfectly right out of the box that I didn't bother to go. Where you find out where things are based on is where you start searching for individual problems that you're having, and then people say, well, you're having this problem because this happens, or you're having that problem because of that happens, or it's built on this, or that doesn't work.
Rotten Corp says...
No, I didn't have any of that.
No, the chat room, Rotten Corp's in the chat room, and on the website, it is built from scratch. KP in the chat room has it on his Qbox i4 that I have, and he says it runs pretty good. That is a great idea. So check it out, openelec.tv, openelec.tv for the URL. We'll have the link in the show notes. While I'm talking about links in the show notes, producer Rotten Corp's pinged me that the LastPix site at jupiterbroadcasting.com/lastpix has been updated. Among many of the wonderful updates is now complete Android app picks. Wow, Jesus, look at all these app picks. Look at all these Android apps I've installed on microphones and tested. Holy crap. And also, now he's put icons in there to signify which ones are done by Ting and which ones are done by Jupiter Broadcasting on the apps pick site. So that's pretty cool. You can find all of our previous desktops, spotlights, and Android app picks at jupiterbroadcasting.com/lastpicks. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. If you're setting up a new Android device or a new Linux desktop, some of the best apps on the web for Linux and for Android are listed on that site, jupiterbroadcasting.com/lastpicks. All right, Noah, with the picks all done, that means it's time for the news.
it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Go to last.ting.com to get started. They'll give a little support to your local Linux Action Show, but it'll also get you a $25 discount off your first Ting device. Or if you have a Ting-compatible device, I'll give you $25 service credit. And guess what? There's more Ting devices all the time because now they support a ton of GSM devices and CDMA devices. So go to last.ting.com. It's mobile that makes sense. Ting is truly on a mission to make mobile better. I'll tell you, for me, I like just the fact that maybe I'm a bit of a renegade. I'm on the outside. I'm helping the underdog. Maybe I like that a little bit, but really it's the no contract that got me. That was like, oh, that was like the first, like, that's different. And then when I looked at their plans, and they've changed since I became a customer. They've only changed for the better, too. Now it's I only pay for what I use. It's a flat $6 for my line. That's phenomenal. So I have 3 lines because it's not a bad deal, and I've got the phones, and they're unlocked. They're mine. I own them. So it's $6 for the lines, and I just pay for my usage on top of that. And I'm pretty savvy about my data usage, and I don't use the phone much, and I actually don't use any text messaging now that I'm pretty much all in Hangouts and Telegram. So my Ting bill for 3 phones is sometimes as low as $20. Sometimes, like when Linux Fest is getting close, goes up to like $60, $70. I think my highest has ever been like 70-something. And that's for 3 smartphones with tethering, hotspot, picture messaging, caller ID, voicemail, all the features you'd expect, plus Ting's incredible dashboard. And their no-hold customer service at 1-855-TING-FTW. You get to talk to an actual human during 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And Ting also has some great devices. They have talk about the value phone. Here's a Unimax MXE, $675, $81, ships by Monday. You own it outright. But let's not kid ourselves. Check this one out, Noah. The Moto G, $66.
$66?
Last.ting.com, $66 for the Moto G from Ting. No contract. Pay for what you use. Unlocked phone. You own it outright. Last.ting.com. Go get it while it's in stock because I think this is a refurb unit. I'm not sure though, but double check. Yes, it's been and by the way, Ting really knows how to do refurbs. They do these right. So a Ting refurb, I own 2 Ting refurbs now. They've been great. It's a really great way to save some money. It ships with Android KitKat 4.4. I mean, you guys know the Moto G is a serious phone. $66, no contract. It's a pretty great way to go. And you can get it at last.ting.com and support the show. And check out, too, their savings calculator. You'll be surprised how much money you're going to save, too. It's really neat. And even if you just were considering getting a hotspot and tethering, and now you can just get that as well. $6 a month plus your usage. Last.ting.com. And before we get out of here, Noah, you know we do have an app pick. Would you like me to roll it? Do you want me to play the... I mean, it's your call. It's your call. I mean, if you don't...
Who is doing the app pick?
Yeah, it's our good friend Kyra. It's our good friend Kyra.
Well, then we better
play. All right, here we go. It's Ting's app pick.
Where else can you find R. Kelly's Trapped in the Closet on repeat 24 hours a day? Nowhere. That's where. I'm Kyra, and this is the Ting app of the week.
Go, Kyra. Whoa! Whoa! Whoa.
For cord cutters, trying to decide what to watch on Netflix is the new channel surfing. Now, with Pluto TV, channel surfing is the new trying to decide what to watch on Netflix. Pluto TV is best described as a sort of online cable TV. You're not getting the kinds of shows you get with a cable subscription. What you are getting is an organized and pleasant interface to access videos that are available online. Pluto TV channels start in the 100s with music. Just tap a channel to play.
Yeah,
next is the 200s, encompassing news, opinion, and current events.
That's cool.
In the 300s, you get sports, sporting, and sporty sportsing.
That's actually kind of a neat
the
idea.
400s are kind of eclectic. Theme channels like 24/7 Dogs and Cats coexist with documentary channels, anime, and the highlights from The Ellen Show.
What?
In the 500s, it's online sketch comedy, fail video compilations, and the like. 600s are lifestyle, style, fitness, and that kind of thing. The 700s are for tech and gaming content.
Oh, look at that.
In the 800s, it's science, design, and nature. And in the 900s are kids programming.
Heyo.
On Android, the Pluto TV app is Chromecast ready.
Yeah.
And on the iOS side, it's AirPlay compatible.
Boom.
There's also a version of the app specifically for the Amazon Fire TV. This is great because on the bigger screen is where Pluto TV really shines.
I'm going to get that.
Pluto TV is free, whichever platform you're on. Thanks for watching. Be sure to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button to keep up with our weekly video release schedule.
Boom. Last.ting.com. Check them out on YouTube. They're also on Facebook. They're on Ting FTW, on Twitter. Nice stuff. That's a good one. I didn't know they had a Fire TV app. I'm getting that for the Fire TV we put in the studio. That'll be perfect, don't you think? Yeah, check it out, last.ting.com. Also, $9 SIM cards. Put GSM or CDMA in your device for $9 on the Ting network.
So here's something that bit me that I feel like it's important to let everyone know about. I was not aware that SIM cards are a one-time use only thing. So if you deactivate I'm so used to Ting being so amazing that I can log into the dashboard, turn a phone on, turn a phone off, turn a phone on, turn a phone off. You can't do that with GSM. If you activate a GSM card and you turn it off, you can't turn it back on again. You have to purchase a new card.
Okay, good to know. I would say, too, bear in mind, all things are changing because the GSM stuff is so new at Ting. And so one of the things that's kind of interesting about the way Ting develops products internally is they treat it like they're developing an application. So the GSM support is like version 1, beta 1 right now. Right? I'm just making the numbers up. But this is how Ting works internally. And then the next big push will be a whole new set of features that like brings new integration to the dashboard. Like eventually, like they do like more and more stuff, and they release them in cycles. It's kind of a cool way to do it. So you'll probably see things could potentially change. Things that you don't like now could get a little better. So it's always in flux.
I don't think it's a limit of Ting. I think it's a limit of the GSM technology.
Yeah.
I think is what it is.
I know though.
The way it was described. And to their credit, there is because I'm an idiot, I just click through a bunch of times. I never actually read anything. They have like a huge thing when you activate it that says this is a one-time use only. Do not blah blah blah. And I just didn't.
At $9, it's not that bad. I mean, how often do you have to pop in a new one? All right, so let's start with the news this week. Noah, you're a big fan of LibreOffice. I can tell because whenever there's a LibreOffice story that comes up, you always grab it. I know there's people in the audience that are big fans. Our first one this week might be great for those that are maybe enviously looking over at Office 365 or Google Docs, right?
Yeah. So essentially, they are launching LibreOffice Online, and so what it is it's going to be basically they see what's happening with Microsoft competing with 360. They see what's happening with Google competing with Google Docs, and so what they've decided is that the future of an Office suite is something that works in the cloud. Now, the great thing about LibreOffice Online is for people like you that you want the collaborative editing, you want to be able to do this stuff in the cloud and access it in a web browser and that kind of thing, you can do that. People like me, I can access those same documents locally. I can download them in the open document format, and open those and edit those locally, and I can put them back up on the cloud, and you can open them, and it appears like it's going to be very seamless. Now, there wasn't a lot of information that's online. Essentially, a lot of this has been being taken from a tweet that was published.
There are a couple of this article that from linuxandubuntu.com, and we have not seen this collaborated, or what's the right word? Collaborated, confirmed, whatever you want to say. But at least here, with a couple of things that jump out at me, Noah, I'd be curious to bounce these off you. Number one. The at least the initial version, which is be called LOL, LOOL, will be hosted by the Document Foundations themselves. So it doesn't sound like it's necessarily going to be a self-hosted thing, at least initially. And then secondarily, they say it will have and the word they're using in this article is full fidelity integration with the desktop version, which to me suggests A, desktop version not going away. B, they aim to be not just to have full compatibility with the desktop version, but they say here they want to achieve complete document fidelity across all versions. They say LibreOffice Online would be the first to do this. This is going to be like a major point of pride for them, is to make sure the desktop versions and the online versions talk seamlessly together, like at least through document compatibility. What are your thoughts on being able to self-host or not self-host? Is that a deal breaker for you? And are you worried about the diminishing investment in the desktop version?
Not at all. Not at all. So for one, the LibreOffice people have always been hugely focused on the desktop, and they are making huge improvements to the desktop version. So I absolutely don't see the desktop version going away. That said, if no more development continued on the desktop version, it is perfectly usable, at least for what I do with it right now. There's nothing that I'm lacking in the desktop version. And the thing that I hear most often from people like you and other people is that the feature that they want is the ability to use it in the cloud. Now, how long do you think it'll be if let's say they start with they're going to host it themselves? How long do you think it'll be before, because they're an open source project, how long do you think it'll be before they publish all of this stuff out and projects like OwnCloud pick this up, and now all of a sudden you have LibreOffice inside of OwnCloud? It's coming. Yeah, it's totally coming.
That would be ideal. Now, here's a couple thoughts. Real quick, you can't take LibreOffice on the desktop and translate to the web. It's not going to work. I don't think that UI works very well as a desktop app. You might be able to get some basics of it, but I have a big concern about that. Secondarily, I think this is a must-do. Today, if I'm on a mobile device, LibreOffice isn't really a contender. Now, the reality is a lot of people more and more people are on mobile. They're opening up documents when they get an email. This is an area that LibreOffice is really unable to play in, and it's sort of allowed Microsoft to run wild here. Now you're seeing that like the new Samsung devices ship with Office 360 or whatever it's called for the Android devices pre-installed. This is becoming a more and more common thing. Microsoft is locking in agreements with these Android vendors to ship these Microsoft products, and LibreOffice has really no full response. There's different takes on mobile versions of LibreOffice. But there's no full-on complete response that works on the desktop, works on mobile. And the thing this is this web client will not need any plugins. It'll be JavaScript and HTML5. So the web client, they say, should run on any modern web browser. So in my interpretation, that's Chrome or the Android browser, and it's Safari on iOS or whatever desktop browser. And I think I'm a little worried about the division of attention and doing this wrong and blowing the UI and not making it very consumer approachable. But at the same time, those are risks they absolutely have to take because they don't have an answer to a pretty important market. We just can't ignore it anymore. So they have to do this. In a sense.
I don't know. I mean, how hard? There are a couple of different. Over time, there have been a couple different implementations of Office suites that ran inside of web browsers. I know that there's another project. Can't think of the name.
There's
off the top of my
Zoho
head, but
too.
they have an answer to Citrix, where it's essentially a virtualized desktop, and they've had an Office suite that ran inside of a web browser, and then of course you have things like Google Docs. So I don't think that there's necessarily going to be a problem porting. I don't know. I necessarily agree that you can't put LibreOffice in its current form inside of a web browser and have it work. I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay.
But even if they don't, as long as they have, like you've said, as long as we have basic text editing, as long as I can put text in, I can make things bold, I can make things italicized, I can change the font, stuff like that, those basic functionality, if even that is there, I think it will work for 90% of people.
Yeah, and then you get to the people like me who would like to see a little collaborative editing and things like that. You never know. All right, Noah.
No, I think that's. There's no point in putting it in the cloud if you're not going to have collaborative editing, right? I think the two go hand in hand. Unless you're a person that uses 17 different computers throughout the day, and so you have to take your documents with you everywhere, and then for some reason that something like Google Drive or OwnCloud isn't going to work, and then on top of that, if you have all of those things, then I can see how this would be useful. But I think even though they don't explicitly spell it out, I think the real advantage in doing this is that eventually we get collaborative editing.
I hope so. That could be the way. All right. So I want to talk about SteamOS, something I've been watching for a little while. A new version just came out on March 25th, and a couple of things that are changed. So SteamOS update 157, and it has Linux kernel 3.10.5, NVIDIA driver version 346.35, and it's also including some OEM branding for Alienware in there. Numerous security fixes are also going into this. In addition, Iceweasel web browser has been updated. Here's a couple things, though, that jump out at me. Remember that these are all updates from upstream Debian. How far away, and do we even worry about SteamOS getting too far away from upstream Debian? Is this like... what do you think? Is this something that is worth worrying about?
I don't know that I really care. I mean, the reality is, as long as it's based on Linux and Valve doesn't do anything to hinder people from porting. I mean, let's face it. How many people are actually using SteamOS or are using Steam on Debian? All we really care about is that we can install it on our Linux distributions. You're using it on Arch. I'm using it on Fedora. Right. Probably the majority of people are using it on Ubuntu.
The reality is these updates are making it more current with more modern. I mean, it's making it really, in a way, more up to date with other distributions.
Right. I mean, for a while they were packaging 1204 with Steam, if I'm not mistaken, right? So I mean, you essentially had this little mini environment of 1204.
And it's like you said, it's all open code. So here's where I was getting is I always kind of look at this stuff and I think, wouldn't it be ironic? And this is like way down the road, definitely not today, not near this point at all, not a problem. But I always just like to toy with this idea, like, what would happen, like, I'm thinking like we're 10 years down the road and Steam machines are like full-on consoles and they're like at Best Buys and they're just everywhere, right? And it's seriously maybe like got a decent, respectable percentage of the market. It hasn't replaced the Xbox and the PlayStation, but it's respectable. Like, what if we get to this point down the road? How much will they change it from Debian that we know today? And will those changes make it at some point harder for Linux games to run on standard Linux desktops? That's the only thing I just try to be a watchdog of. We're not there today, but when I start to see these kind of stuff, I go, well, you know what? Yeah, you're right. You know what? They're pushing it upstream. Debian can take these down, and they are. They're really just implementing kernels that have been around for a long time. That is not a big deal. Like, there's nothing scary happening here at all. But it's as a thought experiment, I start to go, wouldn't it be really sucky if somebody came in and did this, and then the end result was you used Linux, but you couldn't actually use it on other Linux distros? But I'm sure that I'm not worried about Valve doing that.
I just don't see it happening. I mean, on one hand, I'll preface with this. Valve is not in business to support Linux. They exist to make money, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to act in their own rational self-interest to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
That said, they clearly have put the first foot forward, saying that they think that Linux is a viable ecosystem for them to move to and to base things on. And I don't see any company building off of the back of the community like that.
Right.
Going forward so many times saying that they care about the values of the community. I mean, if they had come forward from day one saying, listen, we're just using Linux because it works. No, I mean, Gabe Newell actually came to LinuxCon 2 years ago and talked, in depth about how he believes in the Linux community.
Here's the thing, though.
So I don't...
Back up, though, a little bit. I think if you were actually more on the course originally than before you get to Gabe's, grand vision for the Linux desktop, I would say just stop at they're a company that wants to make money. And the reason they came over to Linux in the first place is because there has been a metric S ton of work that's just given to them, right? You get so much by using the Linux kernel, by using Debian as a base, all of the driver support, all of the hardware support, everybody that knows how to make applications for that platform and people that are making applications for Android, everybody that knows the OpenGL stack, the NVIDIA and ATI are already supplying quality drivers. All of this stuff just is inherited with Linux. And the further you move away from that, the less value you get from it, the more custom work you have to do. Exactly. So it's always within their best interest to not move too far away, because that's the whole reason they came over to Linux in the first place. You move too far away from that original benefit, you lose those things.
Well, that, and I think the other huge deciding factor in moving to Linux was the fact that they maintain control, because they are losing control over Mac OS and the Windows platform. They are losing the ability to control their own system. I mean, if it's essentially, really, if you think about it, Steam needs to essentially almost act as the one and only application, right?
Well, so today, when you download Steam, you'll see it's like updating Steam runtime. You'll see this sometimes, and that is an Ubuntu environment that's sitting on your hard drive that applications are written towards. And the people that ship applications for Steam know that environment exists on every Steam box. That's a pretty nice solution. There's a downside. Guess what? Those libraries, compared to the ones I have from my Arch repository, suck. They're old. They're not as optimized. They're not as good. And if I go in and I delete those libraries, my games actually perform better. My sound works better. Everything is better without those libraries, because the ones from Arch are more updated. And then guess what happens? The next Steam update comes, and it pulls down that entire runtime again. It writes all of that Ubuntu base back, and all of the games start using that automatically again, and my performance goes down. And then I don't notice it for a few days, and then I go in there, and I remove that folder, and my performance is back. So we are starting to get to a point where there is a little bit of uncomfortableness with how Valve is implementing this, and that's what's just put the red light on. But overall, I'm not that worried.
There's no other practical way to do it, though. I mean, the reality is the trade-off for that is they know that that SteamOS is going to, Steam is going to work on every single Linux user that downloads it and tries to install it on a supported platform. And so to go your route, essentially they throw that up in the air, and then you go back to half the people are going to work, and the people that don't know how to download these libraries have the wrong library files or have modified. I know what they're doing makes 100% sense.
This is the bed we have made. And now we are lying in this bed. This is their most practical solution to distributing games across a fragmented desktop environment. I understand that.
Exactly. That's the nail on the head. If you want the latest thing, then we all need to agree on one distribution. We need to discontinue the rest of them, give up all the choice and all the freedom, and then give them one platform and say, here, now you can trust that these libraries will be here, and we'll let you know 3 to 5 months ahead of time when those libraries are going to change, so that you can pass that on to your developers to make appropriate changes, and we won't touch it otherwise. So that's the trade-off.
All right,
that's a terrible trade-off.
Let's talk about something cool. The Gnome desktop has a new update this week. Gnome 3.16 came out. Of course, the big one that I'm really excited about is that new notification area. Like right now, I have all this tray down here with all these bustificated notifications and all this crap. And I never see all this stuff. I don't go down here and look at this stuff, even though it's flashing at me constantly. Having it right here in the calendar drop-down is going to be extremely nice. That's one of the things I'm most excited about. Files improvements. No, they actually... You know me, I love videos. They actually have a video showing some of the features. I'm just going to play a little bit because I actually think it's a pretty great video the Gnome Camp made.
Spring has come to the Northern Hemisphere, and so has a new release of Gnome. This release, we are bringing you new streamlined theming and a better development experience. Several applications have been revamped. For example, Gnome's image viewer, which now features new user interface controls.
Hot.
Files has also received some love.
Yeah, it has.
With simplified pop-over menus and improved file view.
Dim menus. Oh.
GNOME 3.16 also brings new visuals to GNOME Shell.
All right.
This includes the Activities Overview, the Application menu, and the System menu.
Yeah, that does look better.
GNOME Shell also provides an improved design of the notification system.
I love it. Oh, I love that.
That was Sarah's favorite part.
These improvements aim to make notifications in GNOME more discoverable.
Yeah, I got it. Go ahead.
Will, she was asking me, she goes, I was showing her the video, and I said, this is what's coming, because now that you have art,
Sarah is Noah's
you're
wife.
going to get this. Yeah, right. And she goes, oh, so does that mean Telegram? Will I get notifications with that drop down? I can just respond like they're doing? I'm like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Telegram will have to implement that, but yes. Now, you can remember you can also like integrate Telegram into like Epiphany and stuff, and that does support it today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Should I play more? Should I continue?
Yes. Well, it's up to you.
Oh, I'll play a little more. I think it's a great video, and I think there's some nice
music's
features.
great.
I'm digging it.
But also easy to get out of your way.
I love that feature.
This cycle features 3 new GNOME apps. One of them is a preview of GNOME Calendar, an app which helps you plan ahead.
I'm ready for this.
Yeah, I am ready to replace Evolution so hard. And the nice thing is...
When you can sync this with Google. So
anything
Google
that uses GNOME online accounts. Anything that uses GNOME, Google own cloud, I think even Facebook, you can sync this with. So that's really nice. And anything that integrates in with that will support it.
GNOME Calendar integrates with your online accounts, so you can take your calendar with you on the go. This release also features a preview of GNOME Books.
I like this too. I was thinking about Dylan and I are getting a little collection of stories and stuff like that, and for his computer, put this on his machine. You can call it up. It doesn't need to be very complicated. It doesn't need to be Calibre or whatever it is. It's just something very simple to read ebooks, and it doesn't take a ton of engineering to make this app. See, these both seem very sensible apps. Something that's not this ambitious project that sucks resources too much, but something that makes the desktop a little more usable.
A new application for your book reading needs. Furthermore, this release brings a preview of Builder, a new application for developers. Builder is an IDE aiming to improve the developer experience on GNOME. Thanks to more than 500 donors, the project was successfully crowdfunded. If you want to help improve the developer experience too, visit the crowdfunding campaign in the description below.
Nice plug for Builder.
GTK also aims to improve the development experience this cycle, with many improvements to the GTK inspector support for OpenGL and a Mir backend. Finally, GNOME 3.16 ships an improved glib, aiming to make life much easier for C developers.
Yay!
The new GNOME release is available for you as a live image to try now.
All right.
GNOME 3.16 will be shipped by many distributions in the near future.
Arch, Debian, Fedora, SUSE.
GNOME is made by people, for people. Help us make GNOME better by getting involved today.
Can you believe an open source project is making videos like this for new releases? This is 2015, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, I know it's a little long. It's 3 minutes long. I know that probably feels long to the audience, but I think it's kind of remarkable. And this isn't the first time it's happened either. I think this is super cool to be able to promote open source like this. I mean, they've been doing this for a little while, but I think this is one of their best ones. And Gnome 3.16 looks like a really killer release. Both Plasma 5 and Gnome are getting in really good places now, and that's kind of exciting. So yeah, we'll have a link in the show notes if you guys want to check out all the new fancy features like the updated visuals or the new apps. And of course, there's also been some improvements in the technology too. It's not all just visual stuff. One of the things that I'm really looking forward to in Gnome 3.16 is improvements in Mutter. So that way, screen resizes under the Gnome desktop will now be GPU accelerated on a high DPI display. If you followed all of that, then you know why that's a good thing. Because right now, Mutter has been falling back, I guess, if my understanding is correctly, to use the CPU when you have high DPI mode enabled. And now it will be using the GPU, which should be a good improvement on my XPS 13, I would think. Congrats to the Gnome guys. Okay, Noah, our last news story this week is an update from the Ubuntu Phone project, something we're following a little closely now, because it's shipping. People have been getting their BQ devices. They had a GPL issue they've worked through, and that's been posted. So is that what this is about? What do we have here, Noah, from Softpedia?
Yeah, so essentially what it is that they are relaunching...
another flash sale. Cool. Yeah, so you're familiar with these flash sales where they do them in bursts? And then you can,
And what's cool about that is there is inherent. I was thinking about why this works, and there is an inherent desire for forbidden fruit, right? So when something is not available, then you want it. So by doing these flash sales, essentially what they're doing is they're making it available just long enough that everyone that wants them, they can run in, they can spend their money, they can buy them, then they take it back down, and then everyone goes, oh, I missed my opportunity. Oh wait, another opportunity. You can buy the phone again, and so that's essentially what this is. And the BQ acquirers, we've looked at that. In the past is going to be Ubuntu or Canonical's Ubuntu phone.
Yeah, and a reminder, it's a 1.3 gigahertz with 1 gigabyte of RAM, a 4.5-inch display, and 960 by 540 resolution. And there will be one that's more targeted to the U.S. market coming out later, I think, in the summer. So if you're in the U.S., you might want to wait. Although I don't blame you if you want to at least play with the BQ. I would be tempted to.
Right. Well, and the thing is I granted I am an idiot when it comes to cell phone technology, but if it's made for Europe, then it would probably have the GSM, right? And so you could.
Well, it does, but I believe it will only do 2G or 3G in the U.S. It won't do 4G in the U.S. It doesn't have all of the frequencies. So I think that's kind of
fair enough. But the majority of the time I'm using my phone. I'm either at work where I have Wi-Fi, or I'm at home where I have Wi-Fi.
It will make calls.
So as long as I can get my notifications when I'm out and about, which 2G fast enough.
And there's actually a pretty popular Telegram app for Ubuntu Touch. So there you go. You could just use Telegram on Ubuntu Touch. Yeah, so you might pick it up. No, I'd be really curious. I have heard that there are Ubuntu Touch devices on the Ting network right now, so I know it does work. And I put when I had Ubuntu Touch on my Nexus 5, I had it on the Ting network and it worked fine. So, you could definitely, if you do it, let us know how it goes. I will probably be buying I think it's the M4 or whatever it's called when it ships. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay.
Yeah, chat room is saying it's 2G speeds. So think about that, man. Think about when you're looking up web pages and stuff. Now, they might be wrong, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I find myself so infrequently using my actual mobile data.
Really?
I don't know if I care. And when I use my mobile data, it's nothing that is dependent on particular speeds. The exception to that, the notable exception to that is when I travel. Then oftentimes I'm tethering, and then my laptop internet is directly correlated to my phone's network connection. So I would care then. But for most, I'd say 9 out of 10 days, I'm not really relying on super fast speeds. I could totally live with 2G. That wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, just in time for T is rightly pointing out, it's going to depend on the carrier, what bands you can support.
Yeah, that's true.
But we'll cover it when they have the US one. But if you want to get in on the BQ one, you have to go to the BQ online store. My pro tip, create your account first before the flash sale.
Right.
Get logged in.
Yeah, because the site just bogs down when
and the number one thing that always bogs down is the account server or the order server. So just avoid the account server problem altogether. All right, Noah. Well, that's all the news for this week. Coming up very soon, and I will tell you all about it as soon as I can. I'm going to have a very important reason to need the most solid remote desktop solution available for Linux. So in this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, we're going to break down some of the favorites and some of the ones that Noah has used, tried and true for years in the field doing remote desktop support for his clients. Before we dig into all of that, I want to thank our segment sponsor. Ooh, I like that. They're our sponsor this week. That is System 76, and they've got the new Meerkat. Go meet the new Meerkat over at System 76. It is a sweet little rig. We were checking one out on the pre-show, and I kind of want one really bad. And I love the fact that when I buy one, I'm getting System 76 support and supporting a local Linux vendor. That's how I think of them. I really do. I think of buying from System 76 as buying local from like my local produce stand and my local butcher, which I do that as well. It's an important thing for me. They have a bunch of really great rigs, including this brand new Meerkat starting at $499 with the System 76 logo laser engraved into the top. The Rattel Performance up to the Wild Dog, and of course that Leopard Extreme and that Sable Touch. And now that I've used Touch more and more, I'm a big believer. And also, if you didn't know, they have a brand new laptop that's sitting in that really sweet price point of $599 coming very soon, the beginning of April. The new Lemur 14-inch laptop with a 5th generation Intel processor starting at $599 coming to System76.com. Go get yourself a rig built for Linux so you don't have to fight with the hardware. You just get to play with your Linux. And tell them the Linux Action Show sent you. System76.com. So we've covered a few different remote desktop solutions over the show's history, and it's one of these topics that there's a few contenders that remain over the years, and there's other ones that we've recommended in the past, kind of like Splashtop, that we don't really recommend anymore. So it's time to kind of look at the field and figure out what works good in 2015 for remote desktop under Linux. And Noah, I think you're probably one of the maybe experts on the topic. Like, this is sort of your bag. So do you want to start with maybe the more kind of approachable consumer one that we're not going to spend a lot of time on, like Chrome Remote Desktop? You want to start there?
Right. So we'll start with this. Oftentimes, and this is true of anything in life, the more tools you have, the more toys you have, the faster you can get something done, right? And so for those times that somebody calls in and they say, my printer isn't printing, and the answer is to open the control panel up, right-click on the printer, and click Enabled. For those times, it doesn't make a lot of sense to drive 45 minutes out to a site to do that. So you need to be able to get into those remotely, and you can solve a lot of those problems. Additionally, because of the way that Firefox does that little flash thing, every time the operating system updates, I get a call from my mother, and she goes, "My flash doesn't work again. Yeah. I can't get my flash stuff to work." Even though there's that bright red thing up at the top that says "Click here to allow flash," or I've told her numerous times just run the updates. For whatever reason, I have to log into her computer, click on the update button, and update it.
I have one. I'll share mine. My mom calls up, "Chris, I don't think my backups are working anymore. I think my backup stopped." Now, do I drive 25 miles south to go check mom's backup, or do I remote desktop and just click the enable backups and say, "Okay, mom, you're all set"?
Exactly. And so the first one that comes to mind one of the easiest ones to get up and running is the Chrome Remote Desktop. And I say that because if you have Chrome installed, you simply click on a new tab, click on the App Store, search for a remote desktop, and install it, and it does work. The thing I don't like about Chrome Desktop is it gives me this terribly scary message about if you install this. I tried it on an Ubuntu 14.04 machine, and it says this software is of poor quality. Installing it will have unpredicted, and I have no idea if that message holds any water or not. What I do know is that I very much value the operating system that's on my laptop, and I need it to work, and I didn't have time to redo it this week. So that alone was enough, even though I consider myself relatively experienced working with these computer things. I would not install that on my laptop. It was enough to turn me off to say, I'm not going to do it.
I've used it.
Use it on a dedicated machine.
It's fine. I've used it. What I have found with it is sometimes machines, even when I will intentionally leave Chrome on the machine because I thought maybe that would help. And it just will not show as online for some reason. And it's like, what good is a remote desktop support solution for me if it doesn't show online? It doesn't always happen that way, but it happens enough.
So I tried it, and I used it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and I never had an issue like that. It worked every time for me. So maybe that's something that's improved over time.
And here's the other benefit. It has a pretty decent Android app, too, so you can remote into your machine.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that's just it. There's a lot of remote solutions leave mobile out.
Or Chromebooks.
And Chrome includes it,
And they have that. So they have that problem solved.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
that's the first one. And it's a great if you need something, if you just need to get something up and running and you want a no-frill solution, that's probably a good way to go. Is it my favorite choice? Probably not. Then, of course, we have to talk about VNC. VNC is like the tried and true, full-on, remote control solution. The problem with VNC is it requires a socket. So essentially, you have to, well, everything requires a socket, but it requires you to manually punch a hole in the firewall to get to a remote machine. So essentially, if you have a VNC client, and you can use Tiger VNC, or of course, you can just use Romania, which we talked about earlier. You can remotely control a computer. Now, oddly enough, here's where I found the most useful place for VNC is when I'm going from a computer onto the same computer. So, for example, if I have a virtual machine running inside of one computer, VNC is good enough for that. I can get everything done, and I don't feel like my mouse is constantly lagging and things aren't working. Anytime I've gone over a network, locally it's okay.
Yeah,
it's
not so
usable
bad.
locally.
Yeah.
But over the internet, it is a pain. It works, you can get it done, but there are so many more robust solutions. The only thing I will give VNC is it's truly an open standard. Like everyone is implementing a VNC solution, right? So
And the other
there's
nice
something to
thing
be
is
said about
there's
it being ubiquitous.
some remote VNC clients will auto-discover all of the VNC machines on your network, and so if you don't know the IPs or the names, and the only reason I like that a lot is when I've come in to do remote desktop support, I don't know their network name structure, I don't know their layout, I don't know their IP scheme, so the fact that I can open up a VNC client and just go boop, 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 these are all the VNC machines, like, aha. Also kind of scary if you think about it from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, on a network, if you're inside of a LAN, I think that's probably a good solution.
Yeah.
Still probably not my favorite, but the other thing I like about it, and what I don't like about the next one we're going to talk about is I don't like the fact that, or I do like the fact with VNC it doesn't require a third service. If you have VNC on one machine and VNC on the other, it works. That's not true with Chrome. It's not true with TeamViewer. And so TeamViewer is the next one I want to talk about. And the thing that I like about TeamViewer is that it allows me to get a list of all the machines that I routinely support.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You just have one spot. That's very nice.
So TeamViewer, despite what anyone will tell you, works on Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS. I mean, the whole 9 yards.
I got to be honest, I had a bias about TeamViewer. I thought TeamViewer was like a wine hack that essentially hasn't been updated for years on the Linux version. Is it current under Linux?
Yeah, it is. So it is wine wrapped. It is definitely, and you can tell if you look, especially in the installer, you can tell it's Windows fonts. But it is such an amazing wine wrapper that it is almost totally transparent. It's to the point that it feels totally Linux-like. I get my icon up here in the corner. Everything works well.
And they ship download links for Linux for it. Like they officially are giving people the Like they're making this a product. It's a product in there.
Right. So the way that TeamViewer release cycle works, when they release the latest version, everyone gets it. So I get version 10 just when the Windows users and the Mac users get it. So I got permission from a couple clients to show some of their machines. So this one, this is a door control system for a facility.
And you have these categorized by different. You have business and personal.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. So these are all the clients I have. I have my mother and stuff like that.
And I could have all the studio machines in there. I could have family machines in different categories. I could have my personal machines in different categories. That's great, Noah.
So the thing is, the way the licensing structure for TeamViewer works, if for personal, it's free. Each business has to purchase a license if you want to use it for commercial. And because the license is a little expensive, I won't pay for the license for anyone. I wait for the clients to, if they're using TeamViewer, that's what I'll recommend to them, and I'll let them do it. But as you can see here, this is kind of interesting. I can go into their computer, and this is actually controlling their door system. So if I go up here and I look at, let's see if I can get the monitor started. I can go in here and I can look and I can actually unlock the door. We'll unlock the door.
Boy, if that's not an old Windows app, I haven't seen one in a long time. Wow.
Yeah, well, this is an old computer.
It's nice that you can manage this old Windows computer from a Linux desktop.
Right. Yeah. I'm doing this all from 1404. So if I hit unlock, it's going to override the time zone. Oop, no doors are selected. We'll do this one.
And
weird that it's converted.
While you do that,
so there, I've just unlocked the door.
Oh, okay.
And now I'm going to go relock the door, so nobody
lock
goes
back
in
up,
there. Hopefully,
jeez.
Yeah. But all of this is being done remotely, and there's nobody sitting at the other end here, right? So I'll show you because that was too much Windows. Let's go into a Linux computer.
Yeah.
So here's a client that uses Linux, and it's funny. I actually didn't get permission for this ahead of time, so I had to call them text them during the pre-show, and I said, hey, you know what I need? I need to be able to get into your computer for a second to show something. So hopefully she's not using it. So I'll get in here. So this is I am logged into her computer, so I can see,
an Ubuntu
and this is Ubuntu, but you'll notice it feels
Pretty good, doesn't it?
It feels very, very, very responsive. I'm moving stuff, and I'm not sure exactly what the lag with Jitsi is, but it is extremely responsive.
Nice. Yeah, we are
From
watching it through
a,
another remote session, but yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
that's pretty good.
But it's been extremely responsive. And again, nobody on the other end is asking for anything. I'm not. I'm just simply double clicking on these computers, and then they're opening up. And so, if they pay for the TeamViewer license and they install it on their machine, they just give me a number, and I'm able to go in there and then connect to their computer. Now, the problem with that is that it does require third-party service,
and
so
you got to buy
it.
It
is relying
too.
on the.
You got it. So the business version is $749. The premium version is $14.99. Now, like you said, you can use it personally for free, but is there any monthly fee after this $749? Like if I buy the business version for Jupiter Broadcasting, am I going to also then have to pay for? Oh, really?
No. So the way it works is when you buy the version, you are entitled to that version forever. So you buy version 10, you now own version 10, and then anything that comes out. So you've purchased version 10, now you own version 10. Anything that comes out after that, you're no longer entitled to, but you can continue to use version 10. Now, in a newer version can always connect to clients of an older version, but an older version cannot connect to clients for a newer version. So if you purchase 10, you can never connect to anyone. You can never support anyone that has a version newer than 10. So a lot of times, businesses that do wide-scale support, what they'll do is they'll say, you need to have version 9 or older.
Right.
And that's essentially how they do it. So because of that, I don't use TeamViewer for UltraSpeed. I use something else, and what I use is Screen Connect.
Screen Connect, which I got to play
Connect.
with a little bit ago.
You did. So if you show your screen, you will see that I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a. Actually, you know what I'll do here? I'll start with this.
Okay.
I'll put my screen up, and then I'll show you what it's like to create a session. So from the support standpoint, what I do is I log into my portal and I can click here. I'm going to create a remote session.
And this is a web page here?
Yeah. This is a web page. It's all web based.
Yeah.
And I'm going to call it LAS. LAS, what is this? 358?
358.
358. So I can choose it to generate a random code. I can send you an email invitation, or I can just do a simple code. I'm going to do a simple code at LAS 358, and I'm going to create that session.
LAS 358.
So what it's going to So what it's going to do is it's going to create a remote session, and then I'm going to go ahead and join that session. And then I'm going to call you up, and I'm going to go, Mr. Fisher, my name is Noah. I have seen bad signals coming from your computer. They are offensive, and I want to remote in and fix computer for you.
Okay, all right.
And then you're going to say, okay, well, what do I do? And so I say, go to this URL right here.
Okay, I got this
and
URL.
I want you to enter, and then you're going to get prompted for a session code, and I want you to enter the session code LAS 358.
LAS 358. Okay, I'm entering in there.
Now, mind you, you're not installing Screen Connect on your computer.
Right.
All you're doing is visiting a web page, right?
Yeah, I'm in Firefox.
Well, this is nice because it doesn't matter if you're using Mac, Windows, Linux, whatever. If you have a web browser that can run Java, I can access your computer.
So you have to have ICE-T installed. So I've got ICE-T Web installed.
Yeah, you have to have a Java plugin.
Yeah.
ICE-T happens to be my
that's the one I'm
one
using.
I found works really
and
well.
so I'm saying yes, I'm going to allow it. So it asked me if I wanted to trust you, and I say yes, I trust him. And now it says I've successfully connected to you.
So, and now I have access and without installing any software. And again, this does not rely on any third service.
Minimize my Firefox.
We host this ourselves.
Minimize my Firefox so they can see that. So in one window, I've got your desktop, and in another window, I've got my desktop. So try minimizing my Firefox window and see what the delay is there.
Do you have a minimization here?
Yeah, it's over here on the right, over on this. Or just do that. That's fine too. Can you? Is it cut off? Do you not see it here? Give me.
Yeah,
give me the mouse. No, just give me the mouse. No, this is pretty weird to have my machine remote
You have the
controlled.
controls.
There you go. So now you can we kind of get an idea. There's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah,
but
I see it now.
Now does it paint? So
Right.
it looks like it paints a little bit in the remote session.
Yep.
So it's a little VNC.
Yeah, it is. And part of that is because I think that's a limitation of the Java plugin more than anything else. But the reality is, it is so nice from a support standpoint because I have access to a number of different things. I can transfer files. I can send files to your computer. I can take files from your computer. We can add multiple people to this, so I can have a meeting and I can share different screens. I can, of course, open a chat and send you a message, and we can talk back and forth. I can there's a way I can execute. I haven't used it in a long time, but there's a way to execute terminal commands.
And this is all free.
I've done it in the past. But all of this, the important part is all of this is A, being done inside of a web browser, and B, it's being hosted by me. So I'm not relying on a third-party service.
Yeah. So
I
the performance isn't amazing, but at the same time, so even if it's VNC in a web browser, it's you're hosted it, you've branded it too. It's branded AltaSpeed, which is kind of nice.
And that's just it. You're not nowhere on our site will you find the words Screen Connect. They allow you to replace all of that with AltaSpeed support, and that is really important to us because it looks like it's a custom-built solution. When we go out to customers, they're like, AltaSpeed, those are the guys that have that custom remote thing that it's their own site or whatever. And nowhere in there do they say, oh, well, they're just using TeamViewer, or they're just using this. No, we have our own solution. Now, the industry standard solution that works the same way is BombGar. That is, and that is what most places I think are using. But a BombGar box is going to run you probably by the time you're done with licensing $7,000 to $10,000. Screen Connect was $350. That's what we paid for.
Yeah.
And that gets us, I think, 5 licenses or something like that, or 5 simultaneous sessions. Or we've never actually reached the limit that I know of. And if we did, I would hands down upgrade our license in a heartbeat because it is such a hallmark tool that we've come to rely on. And again, I don't have to install software on any of our techs' laptops. I simply tell them, go to this website, log in with this username and password, and hand out that same URL to other people.
I like the branding too.
And then we can support it.
Especially if you're doing support. I got to give a shout out. And the chat room is reminding me too, and we've talked about it before. Guacamole. Guacamole is a clientless remote desktop gateway. It supports protocols like VNC and RDP. They say clientless because I don't even think it needs Java. You can use just HTML5. And it's free. It's licensed under the MIT license. Guacamole, it's guac-dev.org. But there is definite advantages to the Java client. And that would be remote commands and file transfers. If that is an important aspect of your remote support, you might want to look at Screen Connect. So it sounds like, Noah, if I'm willing to just use it personally, TeamViewer might be the best way to go for like a handful of machines.
Yeah. It's one of those things where TeamViewer is a great solution. And it works right out of the box. And I'm a huge fan of TeamViewer. I use it all the time. My problem becomes cost when it comes to business. And I believe I want, obviously if there were total open source solution replacements, we would hands down be using those. Since there aren't, I'm willing to use the proprietary solutions, but it has to fit my budget. And I'm not going to steal TeamViewer software. So if they say there's nothing stopping you from supporting a business physically, I mean, they don't, it's not like when you pay, it's like the good conscience. You don't get a different version when you pay for it. It's just, then in your head that you have paid them for it. And so because they're willing to take the first step forward and saying, listen, we're not going to give you a crap down version. We're not going to strip it down. We're not going to handicap it.
Yeah.
Because they're willing to do that, I then in return I'm not going to use it for business unless the client is, a lot of them pay for TeamViewer anyway. And if that's the case and it's already installed, yeah, sure, we'd be happy to support it. So that's kind of where I break down on it is I want to support the good nature of TeamViewer, the TeamViewer team, for not handicapping the software. You can install it and use the full version, and if you like it, then you pay for it.
I said at the beginning, the top of the segment, I said one of the things for us now, having done this a couple of times on this show, is it's interesting to see which ones have stuck with it for the long term. VNC, obviously. It's been around forever. Google Chrome Remote Desktop, still kind of new, can't pass judgment on it. But unquestionably, TeamViewer has hung in this for a very long time. They have been in this game for really, as selling it as a commercial product for as long as anybody else, and they have been supporting the Linux version for a very long time. And so one of the things I want to pick something and I want to put it on people's computers, and I want to know that 2 years later they're still going to have it and it's still going to work. And that one time they call me up, I don't have to go, oh man, I wish you were using. Oh yeah, you still have Splashtop? Yeah, I quit using that about 6 months ago. I don't want that situation ever again. And I feel like TeamViewer is the solution for me then, because TeamViewer is going to stick around for the long haul.
Yeah, and I've talked to the guys at TeamViewer before, and I said, listen, are you guys just dabbling in Linux, or is this going to be a real thing? And every time I've gotten the same answer is no. Listen, we are here to stay. This is going to be the thing that that we're gonna hang on to, and we're gonna keep supporting Linux. And so far that's been true. I started using TeamViewer. There was a company I did support for that had TeamViewer on every one of their machines, and I started supporting them back in, I think, TeamViewer 7. And 7, 8, 9, and 10 have all been, the second it gets released for Windows and Mac, I get a Linux version. So
That's pretty respectable.
And like you said, it might be wine wrapped, but it's a beautiful wine wrapper. It works flawlessly. I have had zero problems, no performance issues. Now, I don't see any advantage of the Windows version over the Linux version.
And that's coming
Mac
from
version
literally years of using it in production.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I use it daily, and that's not an exaggeration. And the other thing that's nice is they have an Android app. So a lot of times, like for my mother, that's what I actually use. I use TeamViewer when I get into her computer, and I use my Android phone, and I'll pull it up. And the way that they have implemented TeamViewer on Android is perfect.
Brilliant.
You can drag the screen around with your finger, and to click as a mouse click, you can click anywhere on the screen, but you have a cursor that. It's very hard to explain, but you move your thumb around to the cursor stays in the center, and you can move the screen around until the cursor's over what you want, and then you tap the screen anywhere on the screen and it clicks. It's a phenomenal implementation of Android.
And so you log in, it just gives you a list of all your machines. Mr. Mango in the chat room says TeamViewer is great, paid, but I use it I've used it under Linux for 2 years. Works well at a company. And they use Windows at work, and I'm liking the UI for Android too, man. This is pretty great. So sounds like Screen Connect and TeamViewer and Guacamole are some pretty good contenders. If you just need something simple, maybe for yourself or for a couple machines in your house, Google Chrome Remote Desktop works under Windows, Mac, and Linux, and we've both used it to an extent. And of course, there's just good old VNC as always too. And there is X2Go out there, but X2Go is something I think for a separate topic. I see the chat room's talking about it right now. I think X2Go is more of a, what if I wanted to build a totally remote desktop that I logged into and lived in that? This segment was more about remotely managing an existing X session or an existing Windows session. You need to see the screen. You have a user sitting there and you need to support them, or you've got a system where there's something running up at the console and you need to get to that. I'll give you a really simple example that one of the things I've used VNC and Splashtop before is I'll have a couple of machines here in the studio that have Handbrake up because I'm using them as a one-off. Today I need to use this computer to encode. I never use this computer, but you know what? It's got a great i7, so I'm going to launch Handbrake and I'm going to encode the episode on this computer today and only today. Well, an encode takes quite a while, so it's nice to be able to step away and just bring up that console session I already have on the desktop and be like, oh yeah, it's about halfway done, and then close it. It's simple stuff like that, but tools that allow you to see what's already existing on the screen are a completely different category, in my opinion, than tools like X2Go, which allow you to have a complete remote desktop session where you're totally logged in and doing everything there. And I think that could be its own show as well.
Right.
Cool, Noah. All right, any other things you want to touch on the remote desktop section?
No, it's one of those things where the best way to figure out what's going to work for you is go out and try it. I can tell you that we've used Screen Connect because why we use Screen Connect. I can tell you why people use TeamViewer, but really what it's going to be is you're going to have to go and try it for yourself and see what you think and what works for you.
And check out the Gnome Machine stuff as well, and let us know how it goes for you. And we'll keep checking in as these things change, and maybe we'll have future segments about. I seriously fantasize about creating myself like a cloud desktop on a droplet somewhere that I just log into and from every computer. I've done it before. I think I'd do it again, but I think there's cooler ways to do it in 2015. But anyways, we'll end it right there, and we'll save all that stuff for a future edition of the Linux Action Show. We'd love to hear your suggestions on remote desktop solutions. Just go to linuxactionshow.reddit.com or send it in via email. Just click that contact link at the top of the website and choose Linux Action Show from the dropdown. But Noah, that wraps up our look at remote desktop solutions for Linux. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. Before we get out of here, we're going to do a little emails from you guys. First one comes in from Nate. He says, clearing up a few Kodi things. Hey, guys, I want to send you a message about your review from episode 357. For the most part, I liked it, but there were a couple of issues we wanted to point out. Here, admittedly, most of the problem was on our side than yours. First of all, the library feature you talked about, where the movies and TV shows show up on the main bar, have actually been part of Kodi XMC since 2009. See, now this is good since we're not Kodi users, so we don't know. The issue that Noah ran into, though, with this feature, I'm guessing, is the issue many users experience. There is a screen called Set Content that many users simply click through without actually setting the content of the video source. So where you tell Kodi if it's movies, TV shows, or whatever. As they're adding the content, you do this when you're adding the folder to Kodi. This is a GUI problem that we are well aware of. We need to do a better job of highlighting the screen and actually making making sure people use it correctly, because as long as they don't, they're missing one of the best and most important features of Kodi. That's actually a really good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. It is a super critical selection. The second issue may be my fault and possibly the fault of our website a bit. For users really looking for an appliance-like experience where you never have to leave the Kodi interface, we really recommend using OpenELEC over Kodibuntu. Kodibuntu these days is really more just Ubuntu that happens to have Kodi pre-installed and showing as the first screen you see. For an experience where you're never supposed to leave the Kodi screen, OpenELEC is much better and has a Wi-Fi picker and everything. We hope to make this a bit clearer in the near future. Nate. So, Nate from the Kodi team wrote it. That's really cool. Some good stuff.
Yeah, it was. And so essentially what I took away from the feedback was, A, they agreed with my assessment of the fact that wireless is, in fact, a needed feature. But really what it comes down to is that's not the job of Kodi to provide that. It's the job of the underlying OS to do that. And Kodibuntu is not the best choice for that. OpenELEC is. And to their credit, as I said earlier in the show, when you use OpenELEC, all those problems, they just go away, and then Kodi shines.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that they it was encouraging to me that they acknowledge that some of these things are issues, and that I wasn't the only one that experienced these same problems, and it is something that they're looking to resolve. So simply, and I think you could clear most of that stuff up just by putting a link to OpenELEC on the website and saying, if you want an appliance thing, if you don't know where else to start here by downloading this, and then you can you want to tweak. Then you can go
I bet that gets changed. I bet they do. Next email comes in from Napoleon. You want to take this one? I think it's another Kodi one.
Hi guys, I saw your review on Kodi today. Did you know that you can record a stream from Kodi by defining FFmpeg, RTMP dump, and VLC as an external video player?
Cool.
So you can record the video you are watching or record the video stream in the background and watch another video. I have made a 2-hour video tutorial on YouTube on how to set it up.
Wow.
Here, and then he gives the link. So this is the kind of stuff where open source
rocks.
Really, really shines.
Yeah, just swap out your back-end player. Just swap it out.
Right. But what other software can you do something like this? What other software can I take and say, I'm going to record this in the background, then I'm going to watch this video up front, and because I'm sending this video stream to that place and this video stream to this place, and bringing that one to the front.
In most cases, they can't. Like, take iTunes, for example. They can't. They cannot allow you to swap out the back end, because then you could probably pirate the iTunes purchase content. You could record a separate stream of it, right? Look at any commercial player. They usually have some sort of commercial incentive to not allow you to swap out the back end player. Even Plex. Plex, to a degree, you can change out which versions of FFmpeg it uses, and you can change out which version of the Plex decoder it uses, but you really can't change it too much, right? Not to the level you can with Kodi.
And Chris, guess what Plex is based on? XBM.
What?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Apparently, it turns out this is another thing that came out. Yeah, this. And actually, I think I knew this back when I was looking into Plex, but I'd forgotten that basically major components of Plex were based off of the Kodi.
Do you remember the Boxy UI too? Is also the early Boxy UI was based off XBMC as well.
The Boxy box.
All right, so our last email comes in from Parameter P, and it's about Linux Group, where he says, hi, Noah's enthusiasm about converting companies to Linux got me motivated to try to do it in my own company as well. I'm a sysadmin for a small company, just 6 employees, and already started moving to open source systems, pfSense, FreeNAS, the ELK stack. The next part I want to change is Windows Server, which is used as a terminal server and an email server, Damon. I will probably not be able to get all employees to switch to Linux workstations in the near future, but I would at least like to be able to replace the email server, which handles emails, calendar, and contacts. We use Outlook with a slow plugin on Windows and IMAP plus SYNS CML client for Android phones. So basically a nice IMAP client for Android phones. What would you recommend for handling email plus calendars plus contacts with good support for syncing? I wouldn't mind replacing Outlook with Thunderbird, but for employees to accept the new solution, it will probably have to support at least everything our current solution does, and outsourcing isn't really an option. Just discovered last, but now I can't stop watching. Thanks, guys. Noah, do you have any suggestions off the top for a solution for Parameter P?
So I'm looking through here, make sure I have all of his needs down. I guess I've always replaced Outlook with Thunderbird. In fact, they even have a theme that makes it look like Outlook for those picky people that just have to have.
What about on the back end though for the contacts and the calendaring?
Yeah,
I see 2 ways to go. Actually, I see 3 ways. Here's why. Number 1. You could go probably your safest route. Yeah, own cloud for the contacts and the calendar, standard IMAP for your email, use Roundcube for the webmail client, something like that. You can there's even a Roundcube own cloud app. That's option number 1, and I kind of like that, to be honest. It's kind of in my view the cleanest because OwnCloud's going to continue to innovate on the contacts and calendaring. They've already got app syncing set up. They've already got all the guides in the world for integrating with any client you want. There's a lot of community support, and since you're a small team, that's a really great wagon to hit yourself to. The other one, a little bit more removed, something you might want to seriously consider, Colab. Colab is a free software groupware suite that is pretty slick. And since the whole NSA stuff has gotten a lot of attention, and I would recommend you could also check out Colab now. I know you said outsourcing isn't a great option, but this is a really great service, and the pricing is extremely reasonable. It's built on really true, sound, open source technology, and the pricing is pretty low. And they even accept Bitcoin. So that's Colab. And then last but not least, it's like the open source community's version of Exchange now. There's Zimbra. Boy, God, am I getting older? What? Zimbra, which it's like an Exchange killer. In fact, it's better than Exchange because it uses SQL for the back-end storage of the email, so things like Searcher are way better than they are under Exchange. You can download it for free. There's hosted solutions. They have an open source free aspect and then the paid aspect. And so Zimbra is sort of a heavyweight in this area. And it has not just the calendar, not just the email, but the full-on collab. Like, it's almost more like a whole Google Apps replacement. It's got doc collaboration and stuff like that, too. So Zimbra, Colab, and OwnCloud. And the nice thing about the OwnCloud solution, like Noah's saying, is you could go OwnCloud with Thunderbird. Thunderbird could manage the email. You could have the sync to your phone. So that's a couple of great ways to go, Parameter P. Hey, if you happen to be in the Grand Forks, North Dakota area and just want your very own Noah, well, you could. Over at altispeed.com, go check out Altispeed, Noah's day job. The leader, they say, in open source technology in the Grand Forks area, and I don't doubt it. And the man knows how to do it.
I don't think there's anyone else that's heavily promoting open source in our area. But the nice thing is we have found ways. Anyone that works with open source figures out pretty quickly you can accomplish the same things that you could get in proprietary software, except you can do it at a fraction of the cost. And so that's kind of what we work with. Is we try and implement the same solutions that you would get.
I would argue
at
too,
a higher cost, at a lower cost. Same functionality without compromising quality, but at a lower cost.
I think you should add something in there. I'm just going to give this to you for free, just as an idea guy, Noah.
Okay.
Not only is it lower cost, but it's more sustainable because the open source products have this long curve, just steady pace of development. Even totally worst case scenario, when the open source project gets abandoned, the code is there so you're not left hanging. Commercial products are much more cyclical. They're much more likely to follow hip trends in the market, change and add and remove functionality, or even maybe deviate from their core definition based on what their market thinks they should be responding to, what their marketing department thinks they should be responding to. And to me,
or refuse to activate $25,000 software because its newer version came out and you didn't pay the support contract.
You've lapsed a year in your support contract or something like that.
Right.
To me, that is the long-term non-sustainable disadvantage to commercial software. And so when we talk about open source software and things like that, I think one of the things we should also mention is it is not just free software, but is sustainable software. And that's really important for businesses.
Yeah, and the one thing that seems to lack with open source is businesses, the traditional way of supporting open source software is you go onto the forums, you go onto the internet, jump onto the IRC. Businesses aren't going to do that. A lot of businesses, they just need it to work, and they don't have the time to sit down there and shuffle through the minutia of how to get things to work. And that's the gap that we're trying to fill. Is we say, listen, if you want to use Thunderbird instead of Outlook, don't worry about you're not paying Microsoft, so you don't have anyone to call to help. We'll come help you. We'll get it set up. We'll make sure it works. And when you have problems with it, we'd be happy to come fix it. Except the latter part never seems to fall through because we don't seem to have the problems. We lose business. But if you ignore that, then it's a great way to go.
All right, so get a hold of the show. Go to Jupiter Broadcasting, click the contact link, send in an email, or you can email Noah and I directly. I'm Chris at Jupiter Broadcasting. He's Noah at Jupiter Broadcasting. But the best place, the Linux Action Show subreddit, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. Links, feedback, app picks, runs Linux submissions, all that stuff. A great place because we're in that place all the time. Plus, it puts it in front of the community and they can comment on it. And I use the insights over there from our community members to help sort of form our thoughts and our impressions or see if I'm way off on something. So it's a really great sort of sounding board to kind of see what the community thinks about an aspect too. And it helps. It doesn't make the show, but it definitely helps make the show better. linuxactionshow.reddit.com. Noah, is there anything else we need to plug before we get the F out of here?
That's it.
So far, we are tempting with the idea, I don't know if we're going to do it yet, but we're tempting with the idea of recording on Friday next week to make room for Easter Sunday, which is next Sunday. So check jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar if you're a live viewer, because we might be live on Friday instead of Sunday, with the hope being that we could have the show out Sunday morning for you. and people take the Easter Sunday off. So we'll update the calendar as we make our final arrangements. But so we might not have our live show on Sunday next week. We might be on Friday, and that's it. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We'll see you right back here next week.
If you price out, if you look at the,
I haven't priced
it out.
No, I haven't. I didn't. It's up for pricing now, right?
I think it's $299 for the actual NUC that they're using, and then you've got to throw RAM in there because they're including 4 gigs. So that's another $30, and then they've got a hard drive, and what I think that it starts. What's the cheapest hard drive that you can buy? $50, and they're selling it for $499. So they're making by the time you get. Actually, no. You know what? I think it was $329, wasn't it? Hold on, I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, I should go look because I don't know.
Worked out. It worked out to where I think
I'm gonna go price
like
one right
50
now.
or $70 off of you.
All right, so let's go price one. So let's go meet the meerkat. It's an interesting little experiment.
You know what's really getting annoying?
What's that?
Really getting annoying
What's
really
that?
fast?
What's that?
Okay, $389 for the Intel i5 version that they're basing the Meerkat off of. $389. So we're starting at almost $400, and plus they're adding RAM, and they're adding the hard disk in there, and you're getting the support from System 76. So if you have a problem with it, you're not on Amazon trying to return it or to return individual parts or anything like that.
Right. And any profit they are collecting is a lot of it's going to go back into supporting Linux. But let's just price this thing out. Like if I was going to make a little mini desktop, 16 gigs, I'd go with a 256 or a 250 gigabyte solid state.
Hold on. Let's do this. You do it there. I'm going to do it on Amazon. Okay. And you're going to do. What'd you say? We're doing 256.
All right. So hold on. Let's. So those of you who are just joining us live, we'll start right now because I'm kind of curious. So I'm going to do a Meerkat. I'm going to deck it out like if I was. Well, should I? You know what? Let's spec it like I was going to build it for my son. Because that's my next computer I think I'm going to get is the one for Dylan. So let's go 8 gigabytes of RAM. Okay. Let's go 250 gigabyte SSD. What do you think? You think that's good for games? You think I need more than that?
No,
I could go, but I could also go. What about going 120 gigabyte solid state for the OS, and then doing like a 500 gigabyte? He's not going to care about load time, right?
Yeah, that's true. But does he really? How much data is he really going to store?
Well, Minecraft and maybe 3 or 4 Steam games.
Okay.
So let's go. Let's do that.
It has 2 drive bays.
Yeah, it does because you have to do one. You have to do one as a M.2 solid state. So those little. The bigger NUCs can take the 2 types of. Yeah. And let's do 500 gigabytes.
Okay.
For I'm tempted to say 750, but let's do 500 gigabyte, and that's a 2.5-inch 7200 RPM spinning drive. Okay. And so Noah is matching on Amazon right now, as we do.
And we're doing 500 gigabyte 2.5-inch, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I have it up on my screen now too, so you can see it too. Noah, if you need to look at the playback. So and then I'm gonna need a display, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Should I do a display from System 76 or?
Well, it's up to you, but the reality is
he needs
that
a monitor.
A display is a display, right? You're going to buy it no matter what.
Yeah, and I kind of just since this is supposed to be a present, I kind of just want to have it all just sort of handled. So I'm tempted to say a 23-inch 1080p IPS display. He doesn't need anything bigger than that. So 23 1080p, it's $99. I already have. Well, you know what? No, I'll use speaker. I already have speakers. Keyboard and mouse. I'm just gonna get a Logitech MK200 desktop set. The desktop MK200.
So I'm having a hard time finding a display for $99.
What are you finding them for?
Hold on a second. What's it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. I said 99. I'm sorry. It was 199. Sorry, no, that's why. Whoa, did he bump his camera? Whoa there. Hi there. So let's review my specs so far. 120 gigabytes for probably Mate, Ubuntu Mate edition. I don't know whatever release is at the time. I guess it'd probably be the 1404. I don't know.
All right. So I'm having a hard time finding.
Yeah, because I'm an idiot. No, I'm an idiot. It's $199 Noah for the monitor.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
$199. So whatever you can find that's 1080p. Just to make it, I think they're doing like Asus or I think they're pretty nice brands from System 76. So
yeah.
Okay, and no speakers, and I'm gonna do the Logitech MK200 speakers. I'm sorry, mouse and keyboard. So that way he pretty much just has like a full, ready to go set. You know what I mean? Just like, here you go, Dylan. Now, what is your price at right now?
All right. I am at.
Do you want to? Can you show your screen, or is that too tricky?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So I am at.
Here it comes. Boom, boom, boom. All right, you are at 770.
770/88.
And with an Asus monitor, 2.5 inch gigabyte, 500 gigabyte, 120 gigabyte SSD, and that is 8 gigabytes of RAM, and the Intel NUC i5. All right, so and I am at 922 right now.
Right. But you have to you have to think about this though too. For the same reason that when I go to when I go to look at purchasing a firearm, I will buy it from Cabela's over Walmart, even though Walmart has a better price, because I know that Cabela's has my firearm rights. They care about them, and Walmart just cares about making a buck. And by the same token, Amazon doesn't really care about the future of Linux. So
Can I be honest with you too? And this is just me. The other reality of it is, because this will have a warranty. In fact, I might even buy this. How much more is it to get the extended warranty? Let me see this. I might even get the 2-year extended warranty for $100 because, honestly, I'm busy. Like, we have 2 computers sitting in our hallway right now at my house that are waiting for me to fix 3. We have 3 computers at my house right now that have been waiting around for more than a month for me to fix them. So,
and 1 at the studio. 2 at the studio.
Shut up, Noah. Shut up. So basically, I just don't fix computers because I'm just, not that I like it. I like to do it. That's why I keep telling people, yeah, I'll fix it because I enjoy it. I just never have time. So with a warranty, Angela could call that in, right? And then she could, like, from the house, Angela could call System 76 or she could email them and she could mail it and she could get it all fixed and I would never have to be involved.
Right.
That's almost priceless.
Yeah.
So that's why, yeah. But I'm not sure. Yes, but I'm not sure if NUC is the right way to go, or they have a new laptop coming out soon too, and then you could bring it to the studio.
Yeah, and school.
We do need a hardware intern. That might be a good. I actually have somebody that might. I have an idea about that. Yeah, and really, if I was gonna drop that RAM down, I could probably get the price. And if I bought my own monitor and had my own keyboard and mouse, which would be a lot of the audience, right? That's probably a pretty good chunk of the audience.
Oh, you know what? So my price needs to come up a little bit because I didn't include a keyboard and mouse. You can add another $20-$30 in there, whatever it is.
Yeah. So let's say if I was the audience, I would say the audience is probably going to often get 16 gigabytes of RAM, right? Because they're baller. But we do want to keep it cheap. So let's keep 120 gigabyte solid state and the 500 gigabyte data drive. Like we would put our home drive maybe on this, or maybe VAR on the 5, whatever you want, however you want to roll. I don't know if VAR would actually be a good idea. But let's assume we have our own display because we're kind of, this is for us. And then it's 877 with 16 gigabytes of RAM, 2 drives. That's pretty reasonable. That's closer to what you've priced there, and then you've got a System 76 rig. So but it's tough. It's still going to be. I think it's still in that range where it's only probably going to primarily appeal to people who understand the value of A, having support, and B, contributing to the wider ecosystem. That is a niche. And that's not even like.
To be honest with you, I value the contribution to the ecosystem more than the support. I mean, let's face it. Anyone that's by the time you get to the point that you're buying a System 76, it's a niche market to begin with. There's even fewer people yet that wouldn't ordinarily be able to support it themselves, right?
Right.
I think we're kind of kidding ourselves if we think that most of the audience really needs actual support.
I just think it's so. That's, I guess, what you're trying to say is, and this is what I was trying to say is, I think I really like the machine, and I also kind of wish it was a product like a year ago as well.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it's here now. And to be honest, the chips that are in these things are better now, and the drivers that are in the Linux kernel are at a better state than they were a year ago.